macy'sbackstage.com.
Welcome to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Today is Tuesday, November 28th, 2017. Blasting off with UFO reports. There was a UFO sighting in Roy, Washington, July 18th, 2017. A star-like lights blinking and forming a triangle that elongated. The witness goes on to state, I was driving to work and only a very short distance from my home when I noticed blinking lights in the distance. It was through some trees, and I thought at first that it was a cell tower. But then I remembered that there is no cell tower or any other sort of lighted tower out there. The trees were obstructing my view, so I waited to pull over until I had driven out where there was no obstruction to my view, and I pulled over onto the side of the road. It only took approximately 15 to 30 seconds to get out of the treed area into the clear view and parked. I got out of my car to observe them. The lights were quite a distance from me, probably at least a mile out, but less than a mile and a half, I think. They were at the skyline, and I noted that it was interesting that they seemed to be doing a sort of design in the sky. I saw one star-like white light fly straight up and then suddenly stop. And then two other star-like lights, slightly smaller than the first, flew down at angles to the central one so they formed a triad. Then another light came straight down to form an elongated diamond. Then one by one, they blinked out. The big one in the top center was the last to blink out. It stayed there blinking, and then slowly faded its light out. There was something else. The bigger light did that was strange, but I can't remember where it fit in this sort of dance they did. It was blinking and then suddenly got brighter, and from its left side it seemed to fling out these sparks of colored light in an arch that dissipated quickly. The lights were blue, red, and green. It almost looked like what you would expect from a firework, but there was no sound, and it was more controlled. Thank you for this opportunity to tell my observation, the witness states. I first told it to another site, and someone called back, left a message. Probably soldiers from the base practicing jumps, is what they said. It did happen near the base, but if those were soldiers practicing parachuting, they have got some pretty wild moves and are able to control their flight path very well, even disappearing briefly and then coming back in a whole different place. Our next sighting is in Collinsville, Illinois. Observed several orbs, 200 plus feet in the sky. The witness states, Thanksgiving evening, November 23rd, 2017, just before dusk. I was outside placing Christmas lights on a small tree in the yard and just happened to look up in the northeast direction. As I was standing there looking at the tree I was decorating, noticed several small white objects, probably 6 to 10 of them, seeming to just float around up in the sky, estimating them to be over 200 plus feet up. I thought at first someone must have released some helium balloons or something. I watched for a minute or two and saw that they moved a little in a northern direction, all in a scattered pattern, which is why I first thought they might have been helium balloons moving through the upper winds. I then observed them from a circular position, still in that spot, for a few seconds, and move a little to the south. Then they seemed to scatter a little and just disappeared, either due to the distance and moving upward. I kept looking for them, and about 15 seconds later, they reappeared again in a semi-scattered position, some still in a circular pattern, with a few moving away from the circle to the south. It looked like orbs or small circular objects. I went to go get my wife and stepdaughter and 2 of my granddaughters to take a look at these things. My wife came out onto the porch, and when she came over to where I was observing them, we could no longer find them in the sky. From the time I spotted them until I could not see them anymore was about 10 minutes. They could have already been there longer before I noticed them. Who knows? Anyway, never have seen any UFOs or orbs in my life, but thought this was really strange. I don't think upper winds would tend to move the objects like this, and thought it might be noteworthy. A blast from the UFO past. A black triangle sighting in Angola, Indiana, in August 31st, 1962. Dark gray to black, large, 50 to 100 foot diameter. No lights until after the hover. Then the 3 cylinders in a triangle pattern lit up inside, maybe 10 to 15 foot deep by 5 to 8 foot diameter. Blue-green, glowing mildly light, circling arrow. The witness states, I have now turned 65. This happened when I was around 10 years old. I just read a latest UFO sighting report. They mentioned lights in a triangle pattern. This is similar to what I saw eventually after the hover just above me. So I have decided to tell this event after all of these years. It happened a few miles outside of Angola, Indiana in 1962. My father was a college professor. One day, a former aero student of his came flying over our house out in the country in a huge Goodyear blimp. He threw out a long rope to me out in the backyard, and I caught it. He opened the big side window, shut off the blimp engines, and yelled, "Is your dad there?" "Yes," I said, "I'll get him." Dad came out. The pilot yelled, "I will land, and you and your son hop in." Dad said, "You can fly to the local airport. We will meet you there." "Yes," said the pilot. So soon I was flying in the Goodyear blimp with Dad and his former college student. The reason I tell you this is the spacecraft came in a few days later and hovered less than 100 feet above me, exactly where the Goodyear blimp hovered a few days before throwing me the rope. It was 9 to 10 p.m. one night. I was out in that backyard with my friend from school. He was also 10 years old. I had my Unitron telescope set up out in the backyard looking at the stars. I heard a low bass, barely audible hum come and go from the northeast, just above the tree line, above the huge maple trees that I routinely climbed. I could barely make out a completely unlit aircraft moving in my direction from 700 to 800 feet out, at least less than 10 miles per hour. Now, here is where I made the biggest mistake of my life. I was a young kid, and I had recently read an article in a magazine in town about a guy who described being abducted, and they stuck a huge hypodermic needle into his nose to take a brain sample. They showed an artist's rendition of this. Being just a kid, this scared me, and I hated doctors and needles, so very quickly I ran into the house to Mom and Dad's bedroom. They were asleep. I grabbed my dad's World War II .45 auto pistol. From the chest next to their bed, I stuck it down the front of my trousers, somewhat out of sight. I ran back outside, and here she came. She eased down just above me, around 60 to 80 feet over my head. She stopped completely. No lights, no noise. I think they would have greeted me, but who knows? But I fear they saw the gun in my pants, and that blew the whole deal. The aircraft slowly began to move away in a flat direction out over the valley. After it got out about 200 to 300 feet away, she lit up what I believe were her engines. In the belly of the aircraft, sitting in a perfect triangular pattern from each other, were 3 deep cylinders going up into the base of the aircraft. They had not been visible before until they lit up with the mild blue-green glowing light. Now, I had some light so I could see now up close and look up inside those possible engines with my Unitron telescope. I selected a 50 or 60 power lens off the roller of lens on the scope since she was still so close. Very interestingly, the light inside the cylinders, or maybe engines, was rotating in a right-hand direction around the inside surface of the walls of each of the 3 cylinders. Next thing happened, I thought she was going to crash. She began to tilt to the right, then come back up level, then tilt to the left. It was like she was trying to just get the right angle as I began to gather she wasn't crashing. She was getting set up to go. She nosed up to about 50 or 60 degrees. The lights got a little brighter in her belly. Next, she lit out, climbing fast. I increased the magnification at 200 power, then 400. Then finally, using the Barlow lens and my Unitron refractor scope, I was at 600 power as I recall. Then she disappeared out amongst the stars. She looked like any other star, then gone. Me, this little kid, was totally enlightened and also very unhappy with myself for grabbing the gun because it likely caused me to miss the chance of a lifetime. I may have had the chance to explore the universe with them. I have never seen them again through my 65 years of life. A few minutes later, my dad came running out and said, "Give the gun. What are you doing?" I pointed to the sky and told him what had just happened. He said, "You're just seeing things. Don't tell anyone what you just told me, or they will think you may be sick or crazy and send you away." So all my life to now, this has been locked inside of me. I just learned about MUFON, so I have decided to tell you people what happened. I am glad to be here that other people have recently seen what may be related to the same triangle-lit aircraft, or should I say, spacecraft. I am in hopes that they are back here, and maybe they have the power to stop the human race from destroying this planet. They must think we are a ship of fools. If they gave me another chance, I would quickly climb on board with them in a heartbeat. Dabs into some mystery science is up next. UFO sightings. Is the government withholding an interest in alien life? This article, along with others exploring the possibilities of alien life and other mysteries hidden beyond the stars, is featured in Newsweek's special edition, Life Beyond Earth? The Mission to Find the Answer. The article begins in December 1969. The United States government called for the end of Project Blue Book, its 22-year investigation into unidentified airborne phenomena. Overnight, the authorities' official position changed from one of indulgent public curiosity to absolute public disinterest. The Air Force was the head agency during Project Blue Book, where they went out into the field and talked to witnesses, essentially trying to figure out what was going on, explains John Greenwald, founder of the Black Vault, an internet-based resource that has compiled more than 1.4 million declassified government documents. After 1969, it was the United States Air Force that said, "No government agency, including our own, has any interest in this phenomena." But thanks to the dogged effort of Greenwald and other UFO researchers wielding Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, requests, anyone with an internet connection and an open mind can deduce the government isn't quite as apathetic toward UFOs as it claims. One curious item indicative of the cat and mouse game Greenwald feels the government plays with UFO researchers was an entry in an Air Force training manual discovered through an FOIA request. He states, I discovered about 8 to 10 years ago now an Air Force regulation.
Smile, we're headed to Macy's Backstage.
And did you hear about the new Backstage Scratch Win Smile game?
Yeah, everyone's a winner.
Right. Make any $25 Backstage purchase now through Saturday, December 2nd.
And score a Scratch Win Smile game card.
You're guaranteed to win a $1, $5, $10, or $25 prize.
To redeem at Macy's Backstage at a later date.
Scratch and win.
What's not to smile about? Macy's Backstage. Savings for everyday life. Details at macysbackstage.com.
Air Force Instruction 10-206, Greenwald says, it deals with what to do if pilots see something strange in the sky and how they have to report it. The rule was a short list of things to look for. For example, if they saw a missile streak across the sky, that was outlined as something they would need to report. On this very short list was the entry unidentified flying objects. Obviously, we're talking about 30 or more years after their investigation was so-called stopped. Wow. Continued mystery science dabs. The Black Vault launches TBV investigations for UFO research, and it needs serious investigators who want to take part. For the past couple of years, I have developed an idea to bring together investigators and researchers to tackle the UFO phenomena, states Greenwald. To sum it all up, TBV Investigations has the potential to be the largest assembled group of participants to investigate this phenomenon ever. But it needs your help to achieve that goal. He states, my involvement in the UFO field has lasted more than 21 years, and it is still going strong. I have been responsible for requesting and archiving more than now 1.7 million pages of U.S. government documents and distributing them freely to anyone who wants them on the internet. The UFO phenomenon has always been the most popular and most sought after of the documents that I have ever put out online. The Black Vault has become a popular spot for UFO enthusiasts. During this time frame, I've seen many UFO groups come and go, and I've seen many researchers, investigators get frustrated, even to the point of leaving the field entirely over the politics in the material being presented. My aim with this project is to change that. TBV Investigations offers a massive technological infrastructure to use for this endeavor, which includes a public case file database. This case file database is the public's tool for pursuing the case files. Everything all investigators create and want to share can go into this database to show the public who we are and what we do. No work is ever hidden or shielded behind a paywall. The case file database has maps to pinpoint a sighting location, ability to embed videos, photographs, galleries, and much more. Next, a case ticketing system. Behind the scenes, I have built a case ticketing system that tracks each and every case that comes in. Each investigator has access to this system with a unique login password. The system has the ability to assign a case to one person, or investigators can build a team of 3, 10, 100, even 1,000 people to collaborate on. Each member then gets to see and add information to the cases they have been assigned. Investigators can message each other, add personal notes that no one else sees, and they could communicate directly with the witness, all from one advanced system. John Greenwald goes on to say, an advanced toll-free telephone system to report a case. The general public can also use a toll-free hotline to call in and report their case. During this process, the system will ask for them to type in their state, And once they do, their call will be routed to the appropriate investigator or team of investigators, meaning an entire group of phones spread out across America will ring, and the call goes to the first one available to answer. The system allows investigators to work together, all while no one person is getting overloaded with a workload that isn't manageable or desirable. He goes on to state, this system offers investigators a way to have unlimited long-distance calling to conduct their casework. And I've invited participants to use it for personal calls as well, he states. The ability to record a phone call with the push of a button. And it includes all the free calling features like conference calling, caller ID, call waiting, etc. John Greenwald states, I have assembled a very small group of like-minded individuals from various backgrounds to help me finalize the nuts and bolts of how this will work. They all have been instrumental in helping me get this project off the ground. You will meet them all very soon. At this stage now, it's time to launch. But I need the serious investigators who will want to take part in this to make it all work. There are many different ways you can help, and helping does not always mean you have to be, quote, in the field. So don't hesitate to reach out and tell me any aspect you'd like to be involved in. This includes in part, and in no particular order, John Greenwald goes on to say, 1. Interviewing witnesses. 2. Field investigating. 3. Report writing. 4. Case data entry. 5. Fielding phone calls. And 6. Organizing caseloads. If you're interested, please send a message to John Greenwald. Just type contact@theblackvault.com. He invites people to tell him about yourself, your background, and why you'd like to take part. And he'd love to pay everyone, but know in advance that this is simply volunteer with many working parts. And he goes on to say, I know there are many, quote, UFO research groups out there with great people that produce great results. I'm not trying to compete, but rather I want to add a new approach. I have brought together my experience for the past 21 years, not only with computers to build the technical side, but as a researcher, and I see what is needed and why. That's why TBV Investigations is all about. I feel this is unique enough to launch it, powerful enough to achieve results, and much needed by the general public to see hard work in a transparent environment. You can help make it the success I know it can be. I look forward to hearing from you. And he states, if you're interested, again, write him an email at contact@theblackvault.com and let him know what you would like to do. That is fantastic. John Greenwald with theblackvault.com. Now it's time for a paranormal point. This story is called The Shoe in the Riverbed. The witness explains, this happened a few years ago. I had been through a tough divorce from my high school sweetheart, and my best friend, let's just call him Al, distracted me by going on random road trips with me. One morning, we decided to just jump in my car and drive to Carlsbad, New Mexico. At this point in my life, I always had a digital camera with me. I like to take pictures at random, thinking of myself like an amateur photographer. Along the way, we stopped at a small roadside gas station, souvenir stand, and picked up some cherry cider. When we got to Carlsbad, we saw that they had been dammed off a small local river and pumped it so they could work on the bridges. We found a spot at a park nearby and parked. Drinking the cider and snacking on some treats we bought before, we decided to explore the dried riverbed. We weren't the first to decide this, as there were obviously footprints everywhere. There were people's footprints, dogs and cats' footprints, and even what looked like javelina tracks. Then I started to feel an odd sensation, like we were being watched. I looked around and figured it was probably someone in the backyards facing the area we had walked to. Then Al caught my attention. "Hey," he said, waving over to me, "look at this." There was a bone in the ground. It looked like a spinal column, but from what we couldn't tell. "What do you think it belongs to?" Al asked as we stared at it. "Probably a beef or pork bone of some kind," I replied as I took a snapshot, and then just kept walking, thinking nothing of it. As we continued, we found a strange, rust-colored rock jutting out of the soft sand. Al and I walked closer to it. Sticking out of the sand, half buried, was a girl's shoe. "I'm going to kick that shoe," I told my friend as I walked back a few feet and started running at it. I stopped dead in my tracks when I heard a little girl's voice shout, "No, please don't." I looked around, but I didn't see anyone, and Al was looking at me confused. "Why did you stop?" he asked, as I looked for the source of the voice. "Didn't you hear that little girl?" I asked. Not seeing anyone around us in the early afternoon light, "No one said anything," he replied, and we shrugged it off and walked further. Now, I felt like more people were watching me. It was so heavy that it almost felt like a slight physical weight. Al stopped dead in his tracks and pointed ahead. "There's another bone," Al said, pointing to what looked like a broken femur laying on the sand. It had been some footprints around it, but other than that, it looked undisturbed. We looked at it, and Al whispered to me, "Let's go." "I think that is a human bone." I agreed. The weight I was feeling was becoming overwhelming, and this bone did look too human. I took another picture, and we walked back to the car, and Al called the non-emergency police number for Carlsbad. We told them what we saw, gave them our information, and we were on our way home in no time. I'd forgotten all about the bones and the rust-colored rock until a week later, Al called me back. He had gotten a call from the Carlsbad police. The bones we found were indeed human, and though there were plenty of footprints around, no one else had reported it. They were indeed human bones, and after finding them, they started an investigation. Al told me that the police had started an investigation and had questioned them. They asked about the rust-colored rock and how we found the bones. After, they explained that it wasn't a large rock, but the remains of a pickup truck that had disappeared along with a family of 3, a man, a woman, and their daughter. Upon investigation of the area, they found a shoe sticking out of the sand. Inside of it were the skeletal remains of a girl's foot. Thinking back to it made my blood run cold. Was the unseen voice I heard that of the dead girls? My thoughts were interrupted as Al finished what he was saying. Anyways, we helped close a cold case from the 80s. So good job there. Wow. Thank you for listening to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. Be sure to check out UFOHeadlineNews.com daily. And also tune into my other weekly show, The Outlander, Fridays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. And catch my paranormal comic, The Outlanders. Direct links can be found on HeidiHollis.com or just come to InceptionRadioNetwork.com. Remember, always to keep informed and inspired.
Smile, we're headed to Macy's Backstage.
And did you hear about the new Backstage Scratch Win Smile game?
Yeah, everyone's a winner.
Right. Make any $25 Backstage purchase now through Saturday, December 2nd,
And score a Scratch Win Smile game card.
you're guaranteed to win a $1, $5, $10, or $25 prize.
To redeem at Macy's Backstage at a later date.
Scratch and win.
What's not to smile about? Macy's Backstage, savings for everyday life. Details at macysbackstage.com.